All right, thanks for being here, everybody. Today we are talking about value-added products, what they are, why you might want to think about them as a potential revenue stream as your business planning for your farm. And we're going to talk with a few folks, both farmers who have been at Big River Farms for a few years and have their own value-added products as part of their business, and then also with an outside producer who has a well-established value-added business and sells at a couple local farmers markets and food co-ops. So thanks everybody for being here. Thanks to the farmers for joining us, and thanks to all our value-added producers too for taking the time to come and share your thoughts, share your feedback and your insights, and how you got into value-added. I want to introduce our three panelists. We have Kristen here twice in two screens. Kristen is with Tuttie Fruitties. She's a Big River Farms farmer. Are you going into your third or fourth season now, Kristen, at the farm?
Number 4.
Number 4, nice. So Kristen's been at Big River Farms for 4 years. She's got her own CSA, and like I said, her farm business is named Tuttie Fruitties, and she'll be talking about some of her organic, cold-pressed, fresh juices today. We also have Marissa here from Moshky Farm Gardens. And Marissa, what year is this for you, Marissa? Is this your third year? Yeah, third year as a farmer at Big River Farms. And Marissa and Heather, who isn't with us today, but the two of them are partners with Moshky Farms and also have their own CSA. And we can get into this a little bit more, Marissa, when you introduce yourself, but they have, in addition to a veggie share for their CSA, what they call cocktail shares with a bunch of value-added products that they create using produce that they grow at the farm. So thanks for being here, Marissa. And finally, our third panelist is Henry. Henry's with a company called Jajja Wellness, which creates wellness tonics. And Henry's going to talk a little bit more about that and how we got started and what all he creates. So thanks for being here, Henry. Appreciate you joining us. I thought we could just go around, start off. If each of the three panelists wants to introduce themselves, tell us a little bit more about your farm or your business, the name of it, what kind of products you make, and how many years you've been doing it. So Kristen, do you want to kick us off?
Okay, yes. Am I echoey to anyone first?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. Because my sound does not work good on my computer, so that's off, but it's on my phone. So that's why the two cameras there. And I turned one off, so it's hopefully not confusing. I don't know. It looks like it's using my other one. I don't know, what's better for y'all?
We can hear you, Kristen.
Okay, well, I don't know which one to use, so we'll keep it at both. So yeah, Tuttie Fruitties. I started juicing actually when I worked at a juice bar, and I started on my own just experimenting, and then started coming up with recipes that we sold there. And so when the farm started, it wasn't necessarily that was the goal, was to do juice, but it was sort of in the back of my mind, like never left. And so I knew from being in the juicing world already that you have to sell a lot of product in order to make any sort of profit in the juicing world. And that's why the juice business actually failed. It was only open for 1 year. So I learned a lot about not just business, but the juice business. And so when I did started juicing the produce that I grow, I knew that the best way for me to make a profit in that was exactly that I had to grow everything for the juice. And so that's what I do, because that's the biggest cost is the produce, right, for juice. So if I'm growing everything for my value added product, I don't have to have an outside vendor that I'm going to and purchasing their produce. Now, with that said, I pay myself for my produce. So I factor that in when I'm making the estimate of like the cost of the juice to get the profit margin that I want. And I pay myself above wholesale. I pay myself a market cost because I believe that's what my produce is worth. It's worth more than a wholesale purchaser would purchase for it. And so that's what I want to pay myself. So that's how I price my product out. But it's still very much so in lines with, if you go to a juice bar, my juice is lower cost than that juice. And there's some other factors of why that is. But I sell a 4-ounce bottle, and that's $4. And I sell a 12-ounce bottle, and that is $9. So all the juices I'm creating from the produce, and that means that I have to be experimenting a lot because I'm not quite sure what is going to be harvestable and what's not, because that depends on season to season. So the juices have changed from 2020. I started doing the juicing. And so this will be my 3rd year doing that. And throughout the winter, I'm always experimenting. And that means I'm buying other produce with doing that. But is that enough for now? I have like more to say, but I don't want to go too long.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks, Kristen. I was going to ask, do you want to share the types of juice that you make and the names for each of them?
Sure, yeah. So I didn't even like set out to do this either, but my shirt says juice it up and dance because all the juices are songs that are fun to dance to. Because I think that like sometimes like, oh my God, it's like all veggie juice. People are like, oh, I don't know about that. But if it's called like Get Your Freak On, then people are like, oh yeah, I'm kind of into that. What's that? What's that about? And so I wanted it to be more lighthearted and more fun for people to, you know, enjoy the juice and to be curious about it, and also a way for me to have fun too in doing the juices. Sometimes it'll just spark. I'll be like, oh my God, this one's supposed to be called the Cool Jerk. I don't know why, but it's supposed to be called the Cool Jerk. So we're going with it. And so I market it in that way, and I have videos that I've made to do those like song and dance numbers with the juice. I even have one that the juices are dancing together, and and so it's fun for me, and I hope other people enjoy it too, because sometimes running a business by yourself is it's a lot of different things. You're going and your brain is just like so focused on like task by task by task. And so this is a very creative and fun venture for me to be able to make it a song and dance number.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. Yeah, it's always great to be able to like add in that creativity aspect into your branding and your identity, your business identity, and make it more fun, both for yourself and for the customer, right? Like Kristen has a great social media game. Like go check out her social media pages. She's always posting videos about her dancing and selling her juice and making people happy, which like really builds up that positivity around her brand and makes people connect to it more directly too. Like creating that emotional connection through dance and just delicious products, delicious juices. Thanks, Kristen. One other question I had for you before we move on to the next panelist. Where do you sell your juices? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, most certainly. So I sell my juice at, I'm venturing into some different ways, hopefully. But first year it was just at farmers markets, and I was at 4 different farmers markets. And then I scaled back on doing farmers markets because I started doing the CSA. And so I sell it through my CSA at farmers market. Now this year, last year I did 2 farmers markets. This year I'm going to do 1. And through catering and bulk orders. So, and those are online orders. And I want to grow that area. And oh, I sold it at Nina's coffee shop, and they also had some pop-up markets there, so in store and during the pop-up markets as well.
Awesome. And are you including juices this year in your CSA shares and your veggie shares too, Kristen?
Yeah, I thought I mentioned that, but yes, definitely that's part of the CSA. And part of why I even just started the juice was because my first year farming, I was like, I'm going to lose this business if I only sell produce. I just saw the numbers, watched the customers, learning more about the business of farming. And I was like, I have to stick out. And it was very much outside of my comfort zone actually to do the juice, because I had never grown everything to like for that product. And so I was just like very nervous about it working. But anyways, so that's just a side note, like do stuff outside of your comfort zone, just go for it. And also that, you know, I think that is something that helps a business kind of no matter what it is, but if you have a niche, you have something a little bit different than what everyone else kind of in that business is offering. And that's only going to help you. Yes, you have to know what you're doing. Yes, you have to have a really great product. You have to keep working at that product. But if you love it, then that's an easy thing. So, yeah.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. Next, I wanted to pass it to Marissa, but before we do, I should take a step back and mention something that Kristen just mentioned as far as why value added. I know I touched on it very briefly when we started, but just thinking about as a farmer at Big River Farms, as your business planning, as you're thinking about different markets to sell to, different sales opportunities, or different ways to promote your farm business. Part of the reason we're talking about value added is because it is that additional opportunity to make more money, like Kristen just mentioned, off of your produce, besides just selling produce direct or straight as a raw item, as you know, as a vegetable or a fruit, either directly at something like a farmer's market or through a CSA, or indirectly through a third-party buyer or a wholesaler. Value added can be another way to use what you're growing or producing and create a product like a juice or a jam or a jelly or kimchi, sauerkraut. There's a whole bunch of things, right? Like teas and tinctures. Just a way to think about additional revenue streams and ways to make a little bit more money off of what you're growing as your business planning and thinking about what the future of your farm business might look like. So thanks for mentioning that, Kristen. Marissa, do you want to share a little bit about Moshky and your cocktail shares, your value-added products?
Yes, I would love to. So we're Moshky. We do a CSA, and then we also do cocktail shares. So those follow a similar CSA model. So we do, well, this year we're going to do 5 boxes. Last year we did 4, 1 box each month. And each box has 4 cocktails in it, basically. So what I thought I'd do is do a quick like cocktail demo to kind of show our product and give you something interesting to look at besides me. So I'm going to see if I think I'm going to try and angle my camera down so you can see what I'm doing, and let me know if you can't see. So this is our tomato margarita base. So this is what you get 4 of in each box, basically. 4 different cocktail bases. So I'm going to start with a little ice. Hold on, let me grab the ice. With each of our cocktail shares, we give recipes, so you're not on your own to figure out how this is done. So for the tomato margarita, this is like the value-added product we created. And so it tastes like tomato, obviously, and then it has notes of orange and lime. And so the recipe that we give then is 3 ounces of this per cocktail. And each of these bottles we sell makes 2 cocktails. So 3 ounces of the tomato base, 2 ounces tequila. And we give recommendations for like what type of tequila or what booze we think goes best. Booze is really the only thing that's not included in the box. I'm gonna stir it up. I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. We also try to give like cocktail tips in our newsletters that go out every month. So one tip I learned is to let it sit, and the ice actually dilutes it just like a smidge. And that really helps like the flavor. It sounds weird. It sounds like it would water it down, but it makes it really yummy. So I'm gonna let that sit a minute. And then we also include glassware in each box. Or sorry, not in each box, but each share. So your first box of the season, you get glassware. I'm gonna make this margarita in a lowball glass. We include garnishes as well. So for this one, I have a chili lime salt that I'm gonna rim the glass with, and then dehydrated, can you guys see this? Dehydrated this way, lime and a candied chili pepper. So for the salt rim, I'll just dump this out on the plate. Swipe the rim of your glass with a lime. I have a lemon because I don't have a lime, but it'll still be yummy. We try to give a lime and or a lemon in every box, depending on the cocktail. And get all that yummy salt and chili flakes on the glass. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna give this another stir. We also try to give a simple cocktail tool. So I'm not really using anything else for this cocktail, but for example, last year we gave a muddler, which will like squish things in the bottom of your glass for a cocktail. So we try to incorporate some of that so that with our cocktail shares, you really get the experience of like learning how to craft a yummy cocktail. For this one, I'm just gonna dump it in. Perfect. And then we dehydrate limes and candied chili peppers, like I said. The peppers we grew on the farm, the limes we obviously did not, unfortunately. Float a lime on top, float a pepper on top, and then those will kind of infuse as you drink the drink. And then I have this yummy tomato margarita. So that's kind of that's the cocktail share. So each box you get 4 different cocktails, and each of them makes 2 drinks. And then over 5 months. So we started cocktail shares because we both really like cocktails. And we kind of found ourselves in the field trying to experiment with different ways to just like experience the flavors from our farm and find different ways to share that with people. So we also include teas in our CSA shares and in our cocktail shares. Yeah, so we're really passionate about like trying to share recipes with our CSA members, and just like discovering all these different ways to be creative with vegetables. That's kind of that's what we love to do. So we created these cocktail shares, and then the hope, like Matt was saying, having this additional revenue stream, our hope is that we can build this a little more too, to have a revenue stream over the winter. Because if we can preserve, things like our tomatoes and then sell this over the winter when we can't sell actual tomatoes, that would be lovely as a farm business. It's challenging to not have any income over the winter. I'm trying to think what else to mention about the boxes. Yeah, it's a monthly kit. I think that's all I got for now. I'll let y'all jump in with any questions.
I have a follow-up question. Thanks, Marissa. Where do you source your fruit for the garnishes?
We get it through, it's like a wholesale fruit distributor. A lot of restaurants get fruit there. And really the only thing we're sourcing is like limes and lemons. I don't think there's really anything else. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Marissa. Can you hold up the bottle, the tomato bottle that you had, just to show folks? I don't know if everyone can see it on Zoom, but I wanted to show off your branding a little bit. Marissa and Heather create these really cute labels for all their cocktail shares too. Speaking as somebody totally unbiased who had one of their cocktail shares last season, I appreciate it as a customer, just the branding that was included on the labels that you guys use on the teas and the bottles and the boxes that get delivered, just to add that kind of personal touch, and also again to create that kind of brand awareness, create that identity, create that connection with potential customers. I have a couple of the teas you guys created still. I wanted to show off. I don't know if you all can see this because hold on, let me turn off my blurry background. Give me 1 second. I'm also standing in my kitchen. So here is one of the hibiscus teas that they created and put in their cocktail share boxes. Here's a hop leaf tea. I don't know if you can see it super well, but there's the label with some of the branding on it that says Moshky. I also have this leftover hot pepper simple syrup in a cute little bottle with, again, a label on it that says what it is, and then the branding right with the name and a little cocktail glass. So just wanted to share that too as a branding example of value added products. And again, like Marissa said, ways to use that creativity in the product you're creating and how you're selling it, how it just visually is displayed when you're selling it to folks.
That's awesome. Thanks for the plug, Matt. Yeah, we tried it in our boxes too. Like I think it was the same box that had the tomato base and the hot pepper simple syrup too. So we, you can also mix and match things. We give recommendations for mocktails if you don't drink alcohol, and ways to mix things with teas or coffee when it works too, and kind of encourage people to be creative themselves with it. So.
We had a question in the chat. Ore asked, what are the different flavors? Can you share some examples of the different cocktail like recipes and other items you guys created, other syrups and tinctures and teas?
Yeah, so similar to what Kristen was saying, like it does vary season to season depending on what's yummy and in season and what we're inspired by. But some of the popular ones that we've done, we did a peach shrub, which was really yummy. We have a peach tree in Heather's yard. That one was a hit. The tomato margarita is always popular. In the spring, we do like an elderflower cordial, and we suggest doing like an elderflower gin and tonic with that. We try to hit some of those floral flavors in the spring. In the fall, we did like a butternut squash cocktail that was like squash with kind of warm like cinnamon and clove flavors. That one was mixed, I think, with like a rum, and it was kind of like a butternut old-fashioned situation. That might have been 2 years ago. Yeah, what other ones have been popular? We did an apple cider shrub. That one was yummy. Yeah, I'm happy to like share more too. I can email you a full list if you want to send me a message, but those are a few of the popular ones.
What licenses are involved with the making the drinks?
We have a cottage foods license. Licensing is so complicated and kind of so ridiculous. And so I feel like I'd really encourage, if you're thinking about a value added thing, I'd encourage you to try to just like pick up the phone and call the Department of Ag or the Department of Health to just kind of see, like, it can be so specific to your recipes, and it's like, if you put a little too much of this or any of that in, then you need a different license. And so it's complicated, and I feel like it's so specific to what you want to do. But we currently are under Cottage Foods, and then we're in the process of trying to kind of scale up to like the next tier of licensing so we can do more.
One more question. Did you guys also need to have a cottage food license for your teas?
No. Well, we thought we did, but I actually just learned. So if you're interested in value added too, I would recommend the Blazing Trails licensing class. I think it's online. I can find the info and send it if you're interested. But I thought we needed a cottage food license to dehydrate things, which is what we do with our teas. But apparently you don't need anything, I just learned. So you can just harvest your teas and hang them in the greenhouse or whatever. And it's just considered like a product of the farm, just like a vegetable. So you actually don't need anything for teas.
Nice. Is that because it's still just a raw product that's been dried like, you know, a squash or an onion? It's not being processed any further?
Apparently it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because it seemed like the reasoning for that was that, yeah, you're not like adding any outside ingredients to it. Yeah, that's my understanding. But again, licensing makes my head hurt. So definitely reach out to the licensing people if you have questions about your product.
Yeah, good question, V. Thanks, Marissa. Appreciate it. And last but not least, I wanted to introduce Henry with Jajja Wellness. Henry is a value-added producer, not a farmer, but very interested in farming. Henry and I were talking earlier this week, and he mentioned that he wants to retire and become a farmer and has experienced farming as a kid. So welcome, Henry. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. And take it away if you want to talk a little bit about yourself and Jajja.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah, oh, yep. Thank you so much, guys. And thank you, particularly, Matt, for inviting me. I enjoy talking about farming because I grew up farming with my grandma, and I intend to retire as a farmer. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I've helped a lot of farmers in Hawaii. I lived in Hawaii for about 4 years. I helped a lot of farmers over there to grow certain things like pineapple, moringa, coffee. So I still have a lot of friends out there. I grew almost my stuff when I started. I was listening to Christina talking. So that's a challenge when you're, transiting from growing your stuff to like making stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. Let me first talk about myself, actually. So you give you a real background about who I am. So I grew up in Uganda. And I was raised by my auntie and my uncle. I lost both of my parents when I was about 3 years old. So my auntie and my uncle raised me, and my grandma. That's why we see the word Jajja on the bottle here. That means grandmother. So I learned a lot from my I tell people I grew up with a lot of women. So most of the stuff I do, I learned from the women. Grandma. I learned how to cook and farm. When I was about 4, I would go sit we would wake up at 6 o'clock and go sit in a garden, and we would just farm with the hoe. So most of my farming, actually, when you see me even here at home, is I'm using a hoe, because that's how I grew up farming. So I got a scholarship in 2007, and I came here at the University of St. Thomas. I did not speak any English. I did speak a little, but I learned the English here. especially the American English, because it's totally different from the British. So on that note too, if you don't understand what I'm saying, just if I miss any word or misspell anything, just let me know. So anyway, I did my general business at the University of St. Thomas. And then from there, I met my wife there. Right now I have 2 kids, a boy and a girl, 7 and 5. And my wife, for some reason, decided to go to Hawaii to do her school there. So we moved there for a while. And then, you know, there's a lot of things that are connected. So when I was there, we were looking for a place to live. And there was a person that had a farm, but they were looking for somebody who knew how to farm. So we got connected in. So I started growing most of the stuff that I'm using in my juices. And I started teaching her how to like farm, how to take care of the farm. Most of the things that I have actually have a lot of experiences in creating soil. Most people don't know how to create soil. So that was a very interesting thing for her to see, create soil from literally nothing. So we did that. And then when I was there in 2016, my grandma passed away. And when she passed away, I didn't have the money to go because I was still in school. At that time, I had 2 kids. So that's Thanksgiving. One of my friends also, Rollins, got really sick and was like, hey, Henry, why don't you make me, those things you used to make in college? So I used to make these in college because, when I came here, my grandma had made it back home. So I started making it in college. So when I went to Hawaii, I stopped making it. And then this guy is like, what? You got to make this stuff. So I started making them back. And then I accidentally made a lot on that Thanksgiving. And then there was a guy in the back, and when we went to have dinner, and this guy tried it, like, man, you gotta put this in the bottle right away. So he opened up a GoDaddy for me website, and the rest is history. So I started like that. My grandma had passed away that same kind of the same week. So I started a farmers market. So I started meeting a lot of farmers as well, because they were asking what is this, what's in there. And so we started talking, and I started telling them about moringa, I said baobab and turmeric, pineapple, and how what ratios to mix. So I started there, and I did about 4 years of farmers market. I've done a lot of farmers markets. Last year in Minnesota, I did over 160 markets. So anyway, so it kind of took off in Hawaii. And then, I was supposed to go in like bigger retail, like Whole Foods and all that. We didn't have any labels and all that, but Hawaii is really small. So word of mouth moves really quickly. But also you lose a lot of customers because most people come for vacation, and then the next month, everybody's gone. So that's what we were experiencing. We were experiencing some more customers, new customers every month, and then they leave. So when I was here in school, I worked for a tile company. And I called the guy, the owner of the company, and I was like, hey, I have a product that I think you will be interested in. And I sent a couple flavors to him, and we became really good friends because he liked it. And he's like, well, why don't you come back here and I'll invest in your company? So that's the reason why I came back in Minnesota. It's not because I love the cold, but I love the people here. I love everything. But I came back here because we wanted to grow the business. And the other thing that I've found out is everything is connected. So when you meet somebody at the farmer's market, I usually tell people just be nice. because you never know, it may be your business partner in the next couple months. So that's one of the values that I live with. From my upbringing in Uganda to here, I've seen a lot of connections and how things can go bad and how things can go good if you have those connections. So I'm actually here as a connection. I came here on a scholarship because somebody was nice to somebody that was here. So that's how I got here. But I thank you, Matt, for inviting me, because this is one of my passions. I love talking about value-added products because we only get paid by the value. And some people get it confused that, oh, if I keep this product on the market for a long time, then because people will see it, no, it's not about the time, it's the value. You can start a product today and tomorrow it's $1 million product because of the value. So I love value-added products, and I usually tell the farmers, you will never get money if you don't add value to your product. It's simple. You can farm as much as you can, and if you don't add that value next part of it, because people won't see it. I look at value as a share, that's how, when you add value to your product, you are sharing. So, and then when you share with the first person, that person shares with the next person, the value is created, and then you keep on making money that way. And I appreciate what one of the panelists said. It's hard to make money in the juice business because you have to kind of knock every other value product out there to make money. But when you create value, and the other thing with create value is creating a really nice label, so that will add value. Having a story, like a really good story. I've had people tell me, I'm only buying your product because of your story. But that story has value to it. So when I meet like a farmer that is growing stuff, I tell them, you have to dry stuff. By drying your stuff, you already added like a value, like you have beaten all the other farmers in a market because you're drying stuff, and that's how it starts. I would like to talk about the licensing and all that, because I've gone through a lot. Maybe we don't have enough time here, but if you're drying your own stuff, there's a lot you can get away with in terms of licensing. There's a lot because everybody's scared of something that is fresh. Those people who license stuff, but as soon as you dry it, then there's so many. I can ship product here to Hawaii that is dried, but I can't ship when it's fresh. So by even drying it, it just gives you another level in the market. So since I'm from Africa, I usually tell people stories. There's a story in the Bible that says that you can't light a candle and hide it underneath the bed. You have to put it right on top so that everybody sees it. And by the time you take it out, like, you've added value in the room. So that's I love this topic. I can go on and on, but I just thank you much for inviting me. So here are some of my products actually. And like I said, I used to grow all my stuff. Now I buy from farmers because I want, keep them varied at a certain point. So I buy, once they dry, then I buy it. So this is the turmeric baobab. and baobab is from Africa. So you can see here the name here. I see it right here. It's a hard word, so it's you can say baobab or baobab, bulb, anything you want to see. And this is a mixture of baobab and turmeric. And then we have our pineapple ginger. And the other thing I tell people in Minnesota, it's very challenging. Like for me, I love farming, but I would not farm here because it's really, you only have like a very limited time to grow unless you have like a shed. And maybe because I didn't grow up here, so it's challenging for me. I like to see things grow for a long time. But anyway, so this is the hibiscus lemongrass. I saw somebody having hibiscus dry tea. So, this is another way you can just hibiscus, as soon as you soak it in the water, the beautiful color just comes out like this. And it doesn't matter, it's like when it's fresh, yeah, you can't ship it to Hawaii, for example, because the agricultural department will not allow you to ship it. But as soon as you dry it, everybody will use it. So this one is from Egypt, the hibiscus. And then we have our moringa. I don't know if you guys know moringa. This is the one of the trees. If Minnesota was warm, I would be planting everywhere because it's really healthy. And then Marissa. So if you do moringa, I don't know if you have a shaded part. The moringa tea is actually really, really pricing right now. So that's another way you could make extra income. But it's an easy tree to grow too. It's a really easy tree to grow. Every time I go, even here, every time I go to the farmer's market, I planted like trees and I just give them to people, farmers that have shaded areas. So that's the moringa. It's really good. It's medicinal. And then we do coffee. We have a coffee as well. They're 14 ounce. And my struggle right now is because we're using glass. It's hard to ship. So when you're growing stuff and you want to go like one of the things that I think people should think about most of the time when you're trying to go into a value added product is you have to think about the packaging. And the packaging is, you're thinking, when you're thinking about the packaging, you're thinking about shipping. That's the number one, because that's like right now everything's going up like this. So shipping, you're thinking about the look of the product, and you go on because you can't get it the first time. I'll tell you that. You can't get it the first time. You have to, it changes, everything changes. And then also Matt and Melissa was said the personal touch. Like for us, when we ship you something, we send you something like a coaster. And this shows like I'm from here, right over here in Africa. And then it shows the story of how the product started and a couple of other flavors that we don't have. And this is a recyclable, it's recycled, it's like a cardboard recycled, and it's, like just an added benefit. And we give these away, and you will not believe how many people go to people's houses and they say, I saw your Jajja wellness in my friend's house. So like you don't ship out something unless you have something in there that is a personal touch to you, and then it's gonna keep on advertising when you're not there. And I like I said, the value added to product is everything. It's like labeling. It's like the way you talk to people. It's like it's like that additional thing that you do. For example, like my kids make this. I'm teaching them how to like label stuff. So they make this, and it's a popcorn. It's really nice popcorn. But so we had to put in a little. They wanted to sell it outside at the in the summer. So what I did is, like, we sat down and we started coming up with stuff, and I told them, if you can sell this product at $1 outside there, or we can just package it and sell it for $3, online or outside. So it's that it makes a difference. Like, value makes a difference on how things stand out. That's I think that's my message. It's like, it's not what happens, it's what do you do with what you have, by adding value. And when in sincerity, like, we're all trying, we're all human beings, we're trying to add value to ourselves. We're trying to add value to ourselves, and if you can add that to your product, then it makes more sense. So thank you so much, Matt, and I'll be glad to take any questions. And if you need any connections with the licensing stuff, Marissa, I just had you guys do the Brady Mails. One of my friends just launched a company here with Brady Mails as well, so I can connect you with that as well. He's a really nice guy. I've been working with him in the kitchen. I've been working with him in the kitchen, like, late hours. We have a shared kitchen. So if you're gonna if you have a farm, and the other thing I tell people is, like, if you can add like a commercial kitchen, it's a little expensive, but if you can make it a commercial kitchen, you can get away with a lot of stuff, like a lot. And then your product will be on the market, will be sold everywhere because you have a commercial kitchen. Because that's how they get us. They get you from licensing and getting press and all that. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Henry. Appreciate all of the great insights and feedback and ideas you shared. All great information. I really appreciate what you said about adding value both to the product and to yourself, right? And just like the benefit of adding that value or searching for what that value is. I also, because I have a background in marketing and branding and communications and sales, I appreciated how all of our panelists touched on kind of the creativity that goes into creating value-added products and putting that personal touch on it. Creating additional opportunities to share their story, both their personal story and their business story about how the product is created, why they make it, how it's made, what goes into it. So I wanted to give a plug to that and shout out that at the end of April, we'll be hosting a class specifically about branding basics and what goes into creating a brand for your farm business. So stay tuned for more details about that. It looks like we're about 5 to 10. So let's take a 5-minute break, just if you want to go to the bathroom or grab something to drink, and let's come back at 10 for our second half of this class. For maybe like 20, 30 minutes, I'll lead a Q&A with Henry and Marissa and Kristen and ask some follow-up questions about value added. We'll talk a little bit about things like successes and challenges. We can dive more into licensing questions, branding, marketing, communications, all the fun logistics of what goes into value added. And then we'll open up the last half hour or so if any of the Big River Farms farmers have additional questions for our panelists. So let's take a quick 5-minute break and join back up at 10. See you in a few minutes. And I think we'll probably get started here again as people start rolling back in. Just wanted to start asking some questions of our panelists, dive a little bit deeper with Marissa, Kristen, and Henry about value added. So the first question that I had is really geared towards the farmers for Marissa and Kristen. We touched on this a little bit, but can you speak to how value-added products are a benefit to both your farming business and since you both have CSA members as well, how are your value-added products a benefit to your CSA shares or your CSA members?
I can talk a little bit first. I think with our CSA members, it's another avenue to connect with them. And kind of like I was saying before, it's like, it's another way for them to experience the farm beyond just kind of the vegetables they get in their box. I think it's exciting to show people like just how much like abundance and flavor comes from the earth through, and it doesn't just have to be like a raw salad, you know, it can be tea, it can be a cocktail. You can taste like flowers in a cocktail, or you can taste tomato in a new and different way that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So I think it's kind of like looping in our members into that like full experience kind of helps us. Yeah, I think that helps us just kind of do like a new level of relationship building with them. Yeah, sorry, Matt, I don't remember the first question you started with, but that's what I have to say about that.
Oh, all good. I was asking too, how do you see it as a benefit to your farming business?
Right. I think I touched on this a little bit too, but definitely like diversifying income streams. I was at a conference yesterday where I went to a session where people were sharing stories of the drought last season, and it really hit me. Like everyone was talking about how important it is as a farmer to have diverse income streams, because if a drought comes and bad things happen on your farm, like hopefully there's another avenue to generate income and kind of stay afloat. So that's like one aspect. And then I think I also touched a little bit on like hopefully we can build this to a point where we'll have revenue coming in through the winter too, which I think is like one of many challenges as a farmer, is the seasonality of growing here. And we have definitely kind of struggled with that, yeah, and kind of how to sustain our business over the winter and sustain ourselves. So we're not actually like to that point yet, like we're not doing cocktail shares over the winter, but it's a thing that we're trying to build to that point.
Thanks, Marissa. How about you, Kristen?
Sure. So, well, as I mentioned before that the first year farming, I did not do juicing. And then I started doing juicing after that point because I saw how competitive it is and how for farmers and how long it takes to become a farmer that has customers from year to year, as opposed to, you know, everyone can go into a grocery store, no problem, and buy anything, and they don't care about who grew the product. But that's totally different for me being at a farmer's market and how long it takes to build a farm business. And so to have not only a different avenue of income, which I completely agree with, and that's why I want to do multiple different markets as well, and not just sell through one avenue in the farming business, but have a multiple array of products for that business as well. And so last year, the juice, just selling the juice, it is my number one product. That let's see, it was 21% of my sales. And so that is a really good percentage of sales, thinking about all the other areas that the farm sells. And I don't have the numbers of like produce compared to the juice, because that only is tracked through like my square. And at farmers markets, I keep track, but I do know overall that the juice was my number one seller in all avenues of my business. And so just keeping in line with that and seeing like where to put in more effort for a business, look at what's selling, then to be like, oh, hey, I need to put more energy into that avenue that's selling and that's making me, last year, the juice was 41% profit margin. So I made a 41% profit on my juice. And that's a really good margin, especially for juice. In the juicing world, it's like, maybe like 2 or 3%, you know. No, it's like really, it's not easy to make a profit in that way, but because I'm growing everything, that is what really helps me. And for the CSA, you know, I did not do a CSA without juice, and so I don't have a comparison of what people were more gravitated toward, if they were gravitated toward CSAs that had just produce or produce and juice. But my customers last year, the feedback at the end of the season, they did say that they enjoyed the juice, and they said they liked the spicy ones the best. Quite a few people liked the spice, which I found, I was like, yeah, Minnesotans, you're getting better. And so I love the spicy ones, are my favorite. And so my favorite is also when kids really love the juice. And so if people ever send me pictures or something of kids with juice, that was my favorite. Because I think adults, we get, I don't know, or like get jaded by what we should and shouldn't eat, and kids are just gravitated toward like what they know is good for their bodies, and so they're just like, let me have it. I'm like, yes. And so anyways, I mentioned that because talking to a CSA member once who worked with kids, and now I'm going to teach a class with juicing for kids because of her. And so like, that's really awesome, just connecting, you know, because she was a CSA member, but then also just like us being people, you know what I mean? And just talking to people, and you never know what might happen, that, you know, she created that avenue for me. So that's really cool for a CSA member to be able to do that. But I don't know about comparing the two because I've only offered the produce and the juice, but I like that I have something a little different.
Great, thanks, Kristen and Marissa. Yeah, I love what you just said, Kristen, about connecting with kids, just like broadening out the scope as you're thinking about your farming business in general, but also if you're thinking about getting into value added, really knowing like who your audience is, what type of customer you're trying to tap into, how you can tap into maybe existing customers that you might have. So, you know, think about, as if you're in your first or second year and just getting started, even if you're not going into value added, thinking about who you're selling to, right? Like maybe it's directly to family and friends as you're getting started. Maybe it's to people in your local community that you have connections to. Maybe it's to schools or churches or temples or mosques or other institutions you might be connected to before you start establishing more of those kind of larger direct sales at places like farmers markets, or establishing wholesale connections with buyers at restaurants or schools or grocery stores. So something good to think about is just who your customers and who your audience are. Kristen also just mentioned something that Henry touched on earlier. It's just like figuring out how you can establish connections with other folks that you can then partner with to build and grow your business in the future. So if you're selling at a farmer's market, think about who else is selling there and who you might be able to partner with. If you've got a CSA program, think about, you know, what partnerships or connections do you already have in the community? Who can you connect with to be drop site hosts for your CSA? So yeah, just lots of good info. There's a couple of points I wanted to highlight. Kristen also just mentioned margin, right? Like how much money do you make on the product you're creating and selling versus the amount of time and labor and resources that go into it initially. So as a follow-up question for you, Kristen and Marissa, as farmers who also do value added, can you talk a little bit about that margin and if you make more of a margin on value added products versus selling straight raw produce?
Yeah, we have really similar numbers to Kristen. Actually, as Kristen was talking, I was just trying to look at our sales from last year, and our cocktail shares were also about 20% of our sales. And I don't have the numbers of our margins this past year, but it's around kind of 30 to 40%, depending on the cocktail. When you factor in, like if we are getting paid for our time to do cocktail shares, we more or less break even on that. So it kind of depends on how you want to measure that in your business. And then something Matt was saying made me think of, our CSA members. One of the like classes we took, this is more like conventional business rules, which I don't always agree with or like to follow, but one of them that we learned was that 20% of your customers will bring in like 80% of your sales. I think those were the numbers. And it was actually really helpful for me to think about like who are our top 20% of customers who like most want to support us, like will spend the most money with Moshky, and then trying to target that group of people to loop them into cocktail shares or when and if we launch other products. Because I think too, if you think about that kind of like trying to target your top customers, if we're only doing a CSA, then we don't have anything else to offer, we don't have any way to like add more. You can't make someone buy 2 CSA shares necessarily, but people are willing to buy a cocktail share on top of their CSA share. So that was helpful to think about. Yeah, Kristen, do you want to share more?
May, could you repeat the question about, was it produce to then the value added, right?
Yeah, if there's any difference in the margin you might make on value added versus raw produce that you grow and sell.
Yeah. Well, for me, it definitely, there's a lot of factors because of buying things and scaling up the value added. So there are some costs involved that aren't involved with just produce. So you have to think about value added, specifically what is that product, and what are all the things that you have to buy outside of your normal farm products that you would have to buy to generate that product. So anyways, the way that like profit margins work, right, is the more that you sell, the more profit that you are likely to have, right? And so I have to think about it in that way too, because if I sold more juice, my profit margin would be more. If I sold more produce at farmer's market as opposed to juice, then that produce is going to be of higher value. So it really depends upon like the market avenue that I'm selling it in. And it really depends upon how much of that product that I'm selling. So I don't have a specific answer for you because there are a lot of different ways of generating these numbers, and depends on how you want to generate that number, what you want to look at specifically. If I just looked at like farmer's market, for example, and broke down my sales of my produce as opposed to the sales of the juice, and then all the costs that went into farming for those sales of the produce, and then all the costs of the farm slash, you know, actually I bought my produce from myself for the juice, and then all the juicing materials, right? So if I looked at it in that way, the value added does have a higher profit margin than the sales of just the produce at my farmer's market. So it's very similar, but there is a difference. And I wrote down just the juice number was 41% profit margin, but that was just for the overall juice sales of every avenue that I had. And the farmers, so I don't have the specific for like farmers market. And then the produce sale is about breaking even though. It's not much profit there for just like farmers market. It's maybe like, I think it's 15%.
Cool, thanks, Kristen, appreciate it. So all of our panelists have talked a bit about where they've sold their value-added products, right? And starting at least initially in those direct markets or those direct sales opportunities, either at farmers markets, connecting with customers directly, face-to-face, selling value-added products through CSAs, again, that kind of direct sales model to a potential customer. I'm curious, Henry, as somebody who has a value-added product that started, you know, you told us the story a little bit about how you started creating your wellness tonics in college and got some support from friends and sold at some farmers markets. I'm curious, one, if you can tell us just how many years you've been in business with Jajja, and two, I know you've scaled up over the years and now sell wholesale to some local food co-ops, some grocery stores. Can you talk a little bit about what that process looked like and how you scaled up? Oh, you're on mute still, Henry.
Well, I was gonna say the scaling up is a continuous process. It never ends, especially for the juice business. You want to be on top of Coca-Cola, which is almost next to impossible. But so like I said, when I started with the farmers market. I started with actually friends in college, taking it for free. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should put a price on this. You know? So we started friends, and then family members and farmers markets. And, you know, we changed our name about 3 times. It's the same name, but, you know, until we found exactly what we were looking for. That's why I said don't worry, it's not gonna work out the first time. So most of my experience has actually been in farmers markets. I've done a lot of farmers market. We have sampled, we keep a number of people that we've sampled over maybe, when you include the Hawaiian, maybe 100,000 people, just to, you know, like giving out like small samples. So, and we're last year, we sold over maybe 44,000 worth of sales. But it's still me. Like we got in stores about 2 years ago when COVID hit. So that was a problem because we had just gotten into most of the stores and then COVID hit us. But it's been growing. I can see it's been growing in terms of, you know, like if we go to the farm, there's a correlation between going to meeting the customers at the farmers market and then in the stores. So that has helped a little bit. I don't know if I'm answering your questions right, but the growth doesn't stop for me, I think. It just keeps on going, and the more you sell, like Christina was saying, the more you sell, the better the numbers. And then also so you reach a point where the farmers markets are like actually not a good idea because it takes a lot of effort, and when you're like us, when you're just starting, all that time is not actually accounted for, or you can't pay yourself for most of those times. So, and I think it was Marissa that said that you gotta find out what works for you, like what percentage of number of people that you wanna be in direct contact with, so you make the most of the money. Like for me, it's like I choose like kind of like stores that actually setting out my product really quickly, and I create a really good relationship. I make sure I go there. Like today, I'm gonna be in Stillwater. Like, you know, I just landed yesterday, but I have to be there because I want them to feel my support in the store. So I do those, like I do go in the stores now and support them, and I've seen direct results because people want to see who's making their food, especially in the small co-ops. We do sell in Hy-Vee, and those are different. Like the corporations are totally different. They actually don't mind if you are there until your product fails and it's kicked out. You know, but what I do is I like to connect with the people in the stores that sell my product. So before I even sample for the customers that come in the store, I make sure the people that sell the product know how it tastes. Because in case somebody picks up a bottle in the store and goes, "What is this things?" And then I have somebody there to sell it for me. Say, "Oh, I've tried that. That's really good." And I know. And when you go there, probably you hear this, "Oh, the guy that makes that product, this seems like a nice guy," you know? So I try to, when I go in the store, I try to do that in there so that I add value to, as just for the product sitting in the market. There's somebody there that is willing and able to answer any question for my product if it's, you know, in terms of taste. I don't know if I answered the question right, but I had Melissa talk about how to make money in the winter, you know, like how you can make money in the winter. And Christina mentioned that she's starting to teach some juicing classes. One of the advice that I got, I back up. I go to meet this guy and I'm pitching myself to him. I'm like, "Man, you get this product is pretty good. I'm willing to quit my job and go in for the rest of my life," you know. He looks at me, he goes, "Henry, if I have to give you one advice, do not quit your job." And then I just met him 2 weeks ago, and he said, "I'm happy you kept your promise on not keeping your job." So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is like once you run out of money, everything hits you really good. You start to get stressed out. So the more revenues you can get, especially when you're a farmer, the more revenue you can get in there. Like Melissa, I would say one of the things for me I do is I teach cooking classes online. So, and that's the thing, that's one thing you can do, because you're kind of taking your product from the garden right to like showing how, like you did a demo, for us, people love that stuff. And, so if you can teach a class about how to make, margaritas and all that, and then that will get you through the winter until you go back to, the actual work of farming. So I do that, most of the time. I teach like maybe between 8 to 9 classes. And then I do still have a full-time job. I do tiles during the day. So it's like a sweat equity for now until you can be able to stand on your own. But yeah, so I don't know if I answered your question, but if you have an additional question, I'll be happy to answer it. So.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. Appreciate it. Yeah, I love all of what you just shared. Like a few things that popped up for me were what you just mentioned about, like, going back to what some of the other panelists have talked about too, is just diversifying your revenue streams, right? Like thinking not only about what you're producing and growing, but how you can extend the season, right? In our short growing season in Minnesota, whether it's physically with hoop houses or greenhouses, or through other opportunities like teaching classes, teaching cooking classes, teaching educational classes about agriculture. I know, Henry, you teach, right, at a lot of the food co-ops, a lot of the local food co-ops. Those are great resources for farmers.
I'll be happy to connect you, anybody who wants to teach classes. They are looking for people to teach classes, I can tell you that.
Yeah, as somebody who worked for 4 years at a local food co-op, I can also attest to that they're always looking for local teachers, whether you're farmers or producers, nutritionists. I know Marissa dabbles in things like yoga and does some teaching on the side too. So yeah, just another thing to think about as you're business planning, like thinking about ways you can extend the growing season and have produce or value-added products to sell during the winter, but also other opportunities and services or products you can pursue during the winter as like alternative or additional revenue streams for your business too. The other thing I wanted to touch on that Henry mentioned was sampling. That came up during, if you were at our wholesale buyer discussion a couple weeks back, that was something one of our buyers who was there mentioned, was doing that sampling, right? As a farmer, if you're growing products, if you're growing veggies or fruit, and you're trying to establish those wholesale buyer relationships, they mentioned like bringing some of that fresh produce to a buyer directly, right? Creating that face-to-face connection, and starting to build that relationship, but also bringing the produce that you're physically growing, give them a free sample so that when they taste it, like they know what you're selling and they know the quality, they know the high quality of it. Similar to what Henry just mentioned, like if you have a value-added product, start by giving it away for free to friends and family. Like start to build that relationship with people you already have connections to, and get that word of mouth spreading. And then if you're trying to sell at a farmer's market, or if you're trying to establish wholesale relationships with, food co-ops or schools, bring them a free sample, right? Because creating that face-to-face relationship is like the first step to creating connections, and to keep those relationships going. But then just also bringing them samples of what you're growing or the value-added product you're producing, and letting them taste it can speak volumes, right? Because once they taste something delicious that you've grown or made, that I feel like that's kind of the next jump off point, right? Then that like pulls them in even more, and they're like, yes, I want to buy this. I want to buy this for myself. I want to buy this for my customers. If I have a store, if I have a grocery. So some things to think about as you're just getting started out. We have a little less than half an hour left. I want to open it up to other farmers on the call if you have any additional questions for any of our panelists about value-added products or successes and challenges they've faced, or any other ideas around licensing, whatever you want to ask, feel free.
Could I ask a question to Henry? I'm wondering, are you in the kitchen making your drinks, or do you work with like a co-packer or co-manufacturer to produce on your, because it sounds like you're at a much bigger level than what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Right. So it is, I am still making my product myself, and it's not easy, but you know, so getting a co-packer, it's a little bit challenging for us because our minimums are not big, and they ask for a certain minimum, and also you have to pay them. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this year is gonna be the last year I make this product, or maybe I should say maybe in 3-4 months, and I'll focus my attention at in the stores, like doing demo. So I haven't signed anything, but I just got a co-pack that is willing to make our product, and it was supposed to be end of April, so we pushed up a little bit because I'm using a glass, and with China and with the conflicts going on, we can't find a glass that fits up. So we are trying to find another packaging that is going to be as good as this. So I'm almost there. It's like I can feel it, but I can't get excited because anything can happen, and I've been there before. But I managed to find somebody in Michigan that it will be able to help me. And the co-packing, it's a very different, experience, because they can kill your product or you can make it. So we're trying to get somebody that is actually really good and personable, and they want, because when we make product, it's not only like we make it and send it out. We put our energy into it. So we want people to be able to feel that as well. So we're looking for somebody to partner with somebody that is good. Yeah, but that's a good question. It's a challenging when you have little, But for your product, there's a lot of people that actually make like stuff like that, like cocktails. So if you can find yourself, if you can find somebody that you can attach yourself to, I think that could be easier. It'll be very easy. And but the thing is, you have to find a good person. That's the other thing. You have to find a good, because you don't want all your efforts that you have put in to be, washed away, in one day. So.
Thanks, Henry. I saw Kristen put a question in the chat a while back about where do you order your labels and coasters from?
Oh, so good. This was made in China. It's a really good cheap material, but I'm looking for somebody to make it here now, which is challenging. And I order my label from a company here in Minnesota. It's called Process Label. I can send Process Label. I can send you, the guy is nice. I've met him. He showed up in my house one time. He's like, I got your labels. I'm like, yeah, thank you, but I can pick him up for your place. But anyway, so he's a good person. He's a really nice person. They make it, and we have made changes to it. So these are kind of the transparent labels. They do have a lot of different labels, and and these are kind of expensive as well. But they have different material for labels. But if you email me, I can send you his number or his email as well.
I have a question or comment. I've heard there's commercial kitchens
Yes.
that you can rent, that multiple businesses or people, I think there was a nonprofit that was doing it. I've since lost track. Does anybody know of such a thing?
Yes, I actually rent one right now.
Okay.
So they're everywhere now because it's becoming a very profitable business. So I don't know if you live in West St. Paul. The one I use is GIA Kitchen. So GIA Kitchen.
Okay.
And then if you go to Cody Foods or Cody Foods, they have all of them listed on there, and GIA Kitchen is one of them. And
what foods?
I think it's called Cody Food. Let me double check. Sometimes my accent just gives everything away wrong. Let me double check here.
Thank you.
Let me check here on my phone. Yeah, but
that's a great question. Or I was going to say, Henry, I just put a link in the chat to a whole list of commercial kitchens on the Department of Agriculture website.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So and you want to find one that is, again, good for has some hours that you can use. Like for me, I usually go at night when nobody's there, because again, I want my product, when people drink it, I want to feel my energy in there. So I don't want anybody in the kitchen. So I usually sacrifice my sleep and then go there at night. But there's some kitchens that you can go to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two that just came to mind for me are, I don't know if it's still operational during COVID times, but there's a spot in East St. Paul, just off of East 7th Street by Metro State, called Kitchen on the Bluff. That's a shared commercial kitchen space.
Okay.
And the other one that came to mind is at the Good Acre on Larpenteur by the State Fairgrounds. They have a commercial kitchen space that they rent out to value-added producers. I know that like rental fees can be a potential barrier to access if it's super expensive to rent. So the other thing I wanted to mention about commercial kitchens, this has not been finalized yet. It's still kind of in the planning stages, but at Big River Farms, we've been in discussions with River Grove, which is the school kind of in the property there, like as you're driving into the woods to get to Big River Farms. If you've noticed, like when you're turning in across the road, there's a bunch of school properties, a few buildings with signs up for River Grove. I think it's an elementary and junior high school, but they have a big cafeteria for their students, and they also have a big commercial kitchen there. So we've been talking about trying to create a partnership with them so that we can offer their commercial kitchen space to you if you have land that you're farming at Big River Farms, to potentially create some value-added products. And then we're hoping to do like tours and education, and potentially have a plot at the farm where their students could come and grow and learn about growing food too. So stay tuned for more details on that, but that's a potential commercial kitchen opportunity that we're pursuing as Big River Farms in the food group.
And Matt, also some if you're close to a church, some churches qualify as a commercial kitchen. So I've had some people do cook their stuff in there.
One other thing I wanted to note that came up when Henry mentioned teaching as a potential revenue stream. We talked a little bit about food co-ops, right, being a good opportunity to connect with if you're interested in teaching. The other idea that came to mind was landscape nurseries, or like farm supply stores. Oftentimes we'll have educational programs too. So the one that just came to mind for me is a small spot in St. Paul called Eggplant Urban Farm Supply. And they have all sorts of classes throughout the year about like keeping chickens in the city, how to grow like your own food in your backyard, how to create raised beds. And I think there's a few like larger garden centers that have, that are more like nurseries that provide plants for people's homes, but also have fairly extensive education programs and are always looking for teachers and farmers to come present information. So another outlet to potentially pursue if you're interested in teaching.
Do you guys
was
know if the co-ops or like eggplant, do they pay you to teach, or do you teach for free and then it's like marketing for your business?
They both pay. I've actually taught at both at Eggplant and at some of the co-ops in the past, and they both will pay you for your time. I think they both have like a flat rate stipend per class kind of a situation set up. I think the co-ops, I don't know if it's like a rolling basis. You do a little bit of research and check into it, but I feel like they're either like a quarterly or like a 6 month to a year basis where they're doing like a big call out for new educators to join. So do a little digging there to see what they're asking for.
Yeah, they usually pay like a flat fee, 150. You know, if you get like 10 people and above, and they do marketing for you, so it's a easy way. Yeah, and classes fill up because people go to the co-ops anyways. And for you, because you have a farm, and yeah, let me back up a little bit. If you have a farm, you are sitting on gold. That's what I'm gonna tell people. If you have a farm right now, you're sitting on gold. What people don't know is everybody, like 6-8 billion people, every single person eats. So your goal is maintaining that farm. You're gonna be okay. I think right, especially right now, if you have a really good chunk of land, because people don't farm in the city, so and those people in the city have to eat food. So I have a question. I mean, I think one of my cousins refused to go when we were in school. He refused to go to school, and the mom told him, "Hey, why aren't you going to school?" And he goes, "Mom, I don't want to go to school anymore because I want to go farm." And he said, because everybody goes out there and makes money and millions of dollars and whatever, but they end up buying food. So let me go farm, and then everybody will come pay me their money. So I always thought that, you know, that was very unique way of looking at life. But especially right now, if you have a farm, you're like Matt, what you're doing, it's adding value to the farms. It's very, very important for people because there's only one way we can sustain ourselves, and that's through, you know, food. So.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. I give a shout out to Big River Farms too. If you're a farmer who's been at Big River for a few years, you know, we also offer opportunities and do a flat rate fee if you participate. So like today, for example, Henry and Kristen and Marissa are all being paid a stipend because we want to value their time and their knowledge and wisdom that they're sharing, and pay them for that too, right? So it's an opportunity and a resource that we offer as an organization to farmers too. So follow up with me or Becca, who's our education specialist, if you're interested in teaching some sort of hands-on or informational education session in the future too, and we can pay you a flat fee for doing that.
I have a question for people that are listening. Is there anyone that is thinking about a specific value added? And what is it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, this is all right. I am thinking. I have access to things for making soap, palm fat, shea butter, those sorts of things that come from West Africa. And I was looking at distilling flowers and things for essential oils for these soaps, or lemongrass, things like that. So that's one thing I was thinking about, is soap making, candle making. And, you know, you can use things from the farm for that, like flowers or different things like that. Even just little bits of plant products that you can put in. So that's one of the things I'm thinking about long term.
That sounds great. All right, thanks for asking that, Kristen. That was a great question. Good to note too, right? That value added doesn't have to mean edible, right? It could be health and beauty products like Aura just mentioned. It could be soaps, it could be essential oils, lotions. So another potential route to go with value added.
There's also potential to make medicinal tinctures.
Yeah, thanks, Veda. Is that something you're thinking about doing in the future?
Yeah, probably next
Nice.
year.
Yeah.
Right on.
So
Okay. Oh, go ahead,
anybody
Henry.
who is looking for markets to start, I recommend the Linden Hills Farmers Market. That one is like a 3-hour market that goes, and it's like boom, boom, and it's done, and there's a lot of people over there because you're close to China, like Excelsior and all those, Mintanka. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good market. Even if it rains, you still, get your, people come by. And the other one is the St. Paul Farmers Market, and that one is huge. It's a little bit harder to get in, but once you get in, it's a pretty good market. So those two I highly recommend. I don't have nothing else against the other markets, but I want you to be able to make your own money with, your money and the time worth those markets.
Yeah, thanks, Henry. I was going to say too, we as Big River Farms and the food group apply for a vendor permit every year at the Kingfield Farmers Market in South Minneapolis. And any of you who are farming at Big River this year will be eligible to participate in that, kind of under our organizational permits. I know at the beginning of the year in like January, February, as farmers markets are putting out applications for vendor permits, they often will ask what type of product you're selling. And we usually apply just for produce, but there is the potential that we could also apply for value added products if anyone's interested in selling value added at the Kingfield Farmers Market too. We just had our permit accepted for this year, but there might be some flexibility if you are interested in selling value added there too, as a Big River Farms farmer.
Yeah, I was just going to mention to anyone that is thinking about a value added and like where to start to sell, or who you have in mind to sell to, go to those places and see what else is being sold there. Know not only like the customers, try and get a feel if you're thinking about farmers market, like what other vendors are there? Are you going to have competition? Is there anyone else selling a product that you're thinking about selling? Maybe they are selling a similar product, but yours is a little different, or, it could create new ideas for you too. So not just thinking about, oh, this person is a competitor, but it could generate some new way of thinking about a product that you want to do. So I was already at some farmers markets, but I would go to different farmers markets to see like, oh, is this kind of not only the customer base that I think would buy juice, but is there anyone else here selling juice? Or do I have, some competition in that way? And no one else does the juice that I do. No one else, so I don't necessarily have competition. Like no one is selling veggie juices. So I know that, but customers, do they have more than one? So like the soap, right? Like, are there any other people selling soap at the farmers market? Are there any other people doing essential oils? And so, yeah, I think it's always good to do investigating too. Like, Henry, did you know that you wanted to go into co-ops, right? Or did you go searching around a lot of different stores or restaurants, before you were like, yep, the co-ops is where it's at? Like what was your process? Because that was my process, was going around to different places and getting a feel and stuff.
All right, thanks, Christina. So That's a good question. I got into the co-ops because I was at the farmers market. So most of those people that do co-ops, they also sell at farmers market. So you hear when you're selling there, people will say, you should sell at my co-op, you know, and then that's for me an indicator that, you know, that customer is willing to go over there and pay for the product. So if I get, so actually when I go to the co-op, I say, the customer sent me, you know, so I know I have 3-4 people that will come here and buy it. And those people that go to the farmer's market, they usually buy like 3 or 4 bottles. So a box for me has 12. So if they go twice, then they're probably wiping out my product there, so it sells. So if I have 4 people, so that's how I actually get in the stores. I get recommendation from the customers. Well, you should sell at my co-op, and then I take my samples to the manager, and they say, such and such a person recommended me. And also I tell those customers at the farmers market, go and talk to the manager. So I give them this, and I say, go talk to the manager there, because I've been there twice and they don't believe me. You know what I mean? So they go over there and then they talk to them. And then when I come in with my samples, it's like, it's a done deal because they have already recommended me. And in most cases, those are people that have actually co-op memberships, or they pay a certain amount of money during the month. So they have a little bit of power in that co-op. So that's how I get into co-ops. The way I get into like a corporate is things like events. There's a big event called the Feast that happens in Rochester. I highly recommend that one. And then there's there's Veg Fest. So with those specific events, you're meeting people that are actually diehards of the, like, no gluten or no veg, you know, so you're probably meeting people that will, you know, if you have a product that it has no gluten in there, you're gonna have, if a manager from that store is gonna buy your product. So that's why I do those. And then, because in the corporate world, it's really hard to get in anyways. But if you meet them in person, then you have a chance to explain who you are. Otherwise, you have to go all the way to the manager, the people that you don't even see. And this is gonna be my last thing I say. The competition is a little bit scary at the beginning, but I tell people, don't get scared of the competition, because what the competition shows you is you either have a very valuable product or you don't. So that's how I look at it. When you are between 2 juice people and you still can sell, then you know, okay, I have a product that can sell at the market. That's my perspective, though it could be different from other people, but that's how I look at the competition. Tells me, hey, if they're selling at $12 and I sell at $5, but there's still some people buying for my product, that's good enough for me. I have a product that can sit in the shelf. So that's how I look at it. So.
Thanks, everyone. I just put a few links in the chat box to the local feast organization and expo that Henry mentioned, and then a local t-shirt company and a local label maker, if anyone's interested in checking those partners out too as potential resources. We have just under 5 minutes left. I had another question for Kristen and Marissa. I'm curious if either of you have calculated out how much extra time it takes beyond physically farming to create these value-added products.
Yeah, we don't have I don't have an exact number of labor hours, but typically so our boxes, the cocktail boxes go out once per month. And usually we'll spend probably 2 days each. So we're both spending like a full 2 days putting together those boxes. And then that doesn't include like cocktail research, which we sometimes joke about. And that's kind of us like playing around after work, trying to see what's yummy and deciding on what we're actually going to make and put into the box. But yeah, so 2 days for 2 people to kind of put together. And then that was last year. And last year we did 20 boxes. And our systems are kind of like refined year to year too. So I'm hoping that we can do, like now we've got some things down, we have some better equipment. So hopefully it'll take us the same amount of time to do like 30 or 35 boxes this year. But I guess stay tuned on if that plan works out for us.
So I spend about 24 extra hours every week juice. And that's just making, I don't count like the harvesting and like the growing of the produce. I didn't count that in that. So, and then I'm glad Marissa brought up about the research and stuff, because like over the winter primarily is mostly when I do my experimentation and like perfecting the combinations of juice that I have done in the past and creating new ones. And I don't know how much time I spend on that. But it's yeah, I mean, probably about, if I had to say, definitely about 5 hours a week or more during the winter, just making and mixing. And so not that much during the winter compared to the regular season.
Well,
and
we're
then
just about, go ahead.
I was going to say, I pay someone at farmer's market to help me with the juicing. So that is the only time that like I'm not the only one. But I just wanted to make that clear too, that there are times when I'm like, I can't do this on my own, or that I have to have someone else in order to make my product. So
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. Thanks, everybody. We're just at 11, so we're going to wrap it up here. I had a few final thoughts that I wanted to share before we head out. Going back to what Kristen just mentioned and Henry mentioned before about doing your research, like that's a great tip. Even as you're just starting out, to kind of get that idea of what already exists, where you could sell, what the other competition might look like, or if there's people you could partner with, right? So like, I think Kristen mentioned a few times about farmers markets. Go check out farmers markets, even if you don't sell at them yet. See who the vendors are, see where there might be opportunities for you to plug in, either as a produce grower or a value-added producer. Same thing as you're thinking about scaling up your business in the future, go check out some of the local co-ops, walk around, see what the product is on the shelf, see if there's a market opportunity for you to tap into. If there's a product you're thinking, a value-added product you're thinking of creating that the grocery doesn't currently sell, that might be a good opportunity for you to pitch that offer to whoever the buyer is at that co-op. Kristen and I were talking a while back about kind of doing some of that research, checking out farmers markets, seeing who the current farmers and producers and vendors are. One, to get that insight and see like where you as a farmer could plug in, but also going back to the like cooperation, collaboration, community connection piece, maybe there's some vendors that you could partner with too. So like, for example, Kristen has juices, right? A lot of people go to farmers markets not only to buy stuff to bring home to make for meals, but they go there for that community experience, to just like hang out and to physically eat food there. So I feel like a lot of farmers markets, especially the more established ones that have been around for a while, will have vendors selling, sandwiches or other things that you can eat right there that they're making on a grill or that they're producing at the farmer's market itself. So maybe there's like a food truck or somebody selling food for lunch at a farmer's market. And if you have something like juices or drinks, maybe you could sell at that farmer's market and set up next to them, and get some of their customer traffic too. Like people who are buying food might also want to buy drinks from you if you have drinks. So just as an example of a way that you could do your research and see who's there and where you might be able to fill something that's missing with what you're growing or producing, but also how you might be able to connect and partner and tap into other partnerships or other connections at those places too, to help promote your own business, your own products. A final thought I wanted to share real quick before we jump off was continue to just think about the different routes you could go, right? Like maybe you don't have the time or you don't want to jump into creating your own value-added product. But maybe you could find an existing producer like Henry or somebody else who has a fairly well-established value-added business, and you as a farmer could sell your produce wholesale to them as an ingredient in a value-added produce or a value-added product that they're already creating. So that could be an opportunity in addition to potentially creating your own value-added product in the future. Cool. Any final thoughts? Otherwise, thank you everybody for coming. Appreciate you being here. And thanks to all our panelists too for sharing your time and your wisdom and your knowledge with us all.
Thanks for organizing, Matt. This was great.
Yeah.
Well, it was
Yeah.
very good listening to all your experiences. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you all. Bye.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you, Matt.
Have a good rest of your Saturday.
Bye.
Okay.